Hi guys, the episode that you're just about to listen to is generously sponsored by our affiliates Board Game Crate. Board Game Crate provide a monthly subscription service where they get fresh new games delivered straight to your door. Just head over to www.boardgamecrate.co.uk, and furthermore, if you use our discount code UnluckyFrogIsAwesome, all lowercase, all one word, you'll get a cheeky little discount. It's easy to remember because it's true. Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast with one of our Independence Day episodes. You're joined by your usual hosts here, Josh Hartley and Ben Porter. And perhaps Independence Day is aptly named, depending on what side of the debate you were on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are joined by...
Already divisive there with that, Josh.
Are we actually going to have... Right, we have Dani from Bad Hipster Games joining us today. Hello, Dani.
Hello, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And Dani is here to talk about Brexit, the board game of second chances. So, Ben Porter, right, how am I going to interview a guest for at least half an hour about a board game about Brexit without getting into politics? Tell me that.
No, I didn't say that. Now, you can still talk about politics and be impartial, right, Dani?
Oh, that's been the last 2.5 years of my life. Just taking all of the anger I feel inside, but making it seem like it's on both sides.
There we go.
There we are.
So you can do it.
Can I do it, though, is the question.
Well, you've probably listened. I don't know if you've ever listened to any of the episodes where we've mentioned Brexit, Dani, but we're
I don't think we hide our opinions well.
No, we don't. No.
And that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, Brexit, the board game of second chances, the full title, is on Kickstarter right now. But Dani, do you perhaps want to give us and our listeners a brief overview of what the game is about and how it plays?
Oh, yeah, of course. So essentially, just to kind of tell you why in the world we made this board game. I was in Edinburgh when the actual Brexit vote went through, and I went to work the next day like a responsible adult, but instead of working, I just stared out the window despondently. And instead, at 9 a.m., I just went over to my mate's house, and we sat on the ground in front of BBC, and we put a bottle of whiskey between us, and we just started taking shots whenever an outrageous lie came on. And about an hour later, we were feeling considerably better. And it was one of those really lovely, goofy moments where two friends make eye contact and think, like Brexit is actually much better as a game. And then we thought, oh, we couldn't. It's much too soon. And then we started giggling hysterically and thought, oh, what the hell? Like, let's make a board game about Brexit, which then took over the next 2.5 years of my life.
Yes.
So the original conception of the game was kind of to be completely biased on this, was like a Cthulhu Event Horizon game, where the idea was that a group of brave, intrepid explorers would band together to stop Brexit from happening, this monster that would carve its way out of the board. And that was delightful. You got allies, you drew random, it was everything from drawing Nicholas Sturgeon to drawing Cameron, who actually wasn't terribly helpful. And that was fun. And we developed that for about 2 years. And then I took it to the BBC and I was like, hey guys, I made this board game. And they were like, Dani, it's great. It's fun. We're drunk. We're playing it. There's no way I will ever put this on television unless it's bipartisan. And that pretty much led me into another drunken loom of despair. And I thought, well, how hard can it be to make fun of Remain? Can't be that hard. It was a little bit harder than I'd anticipated, but then we spent another 8 months redeveloping the game so you could play on either side. So you could either take up arms for Leave or Remain and kind of battle it out for the future of your nation. So essentially over 2.5 years, we developed 3 independently different games and then went for the one that we thought would not piss off the BBC.
That's fair, and a unique development cycle as far as I'm aware for board games.
I was actually going to say, like, when you were talking when you first started explaining the game, you'd mentioned that you were watching the news report and you were taking shots of whiskey each time an outrageous lie was told. You're not absolutely smashed within about 10 minutes.
And I'm an American, so I have no alcohol tolerance. So it was really just like the moment they were like, this bus stat isn't correct, I was like, oh, I'm wasted. Like, someone help me to the loo. I can't do it by myself.
The red bus drives past as you're playing this game, and you just go, right, open the bottle, open it all up. I think that's a fantastic game, though. I'm going to play that while watching the 6 o'clock news one night.
Because we were talking about, this is going to seem totally random, we were talking about the TV show Deadwood just before we came on the show.
Excellent.
Because I reckon you could play a good drinking game with Deadwood, and it's just every time someone says
just...
Whoa, gentlemen, you just warned me about cursing. I feel like you guys are not upholding the rules when I came onto this podcast.
No.
Are you both politicians?
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Have you genuinely though? Right, there's a big fan community for the TV show Sharp, Sean Bean before he was a film star, and there is a proper, fully fleshed out drinking game of watching Sharp. Some of them are, like, my favourite one is when he kicks someone in the balls. Yep. Remarkable how often he does that in Napoleonic battle.
Yeah.
But when he poses with his shirt either half open or off completely. When he falls out with his Irish buddy, and then they kiss and make up later.
So it's quite formulaic, to say the least.
One of my friends in Edinburgh developed a drinking game over the Lord of the Rings films, and I've only play tested it once because I was one of the hobbits, and every time anyone eats anything at all, I take shots. And every time the Shire music is played, I take shots. And anytime the hobbits are petrified, I take shots. So pretty much,
Lord.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes in, and I could not get off the ground. And everyone was like, oh, like, we're from Glasgow and Edinburgh, you little wimp. And I was like, okay, you have Gandalf. You only have to take shots when he does magic. He's not even in here yet. But yeah, it's dangerous. Drinking games and telly, it's a bad combo.
There's like, ha, we are hardened alcoholics. Look at the state of you.
Yep.
I've been trying, guys. I've been trying so hard for a decade, and still it's like 2 Guinness. Should I take my clothes off in public? Oh, I think I should. Okay, not PG-13? It's hard to tell.
Yeah. They'll be fine. It'll be fine.
So, I suppose one of the questions that we wanted to ask was, you mentioned that originally you had this idea for the Brexit game where it was like this Lovecraftian horror, and that's obviously quite biased towards the Remain side of the debate. But
you read that between the lines, did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. Shut up! I'm journalisming. Okay.
Oh, maybe there should be a drinking game about this podcast. Every time one of us loses our train of thought, shots of whiskey.
That would be a disaster for me.
Yeah. Anyway, questions. So, I suppose the question really is: did you ever have a concern that maybe the game would be a bit too close to the bone, that it might start some actual fights and therefore maybe turn people off of playing it altogether?
Oh, yeah, we definitely knew it was a bad idea. Like, there are times in which you have creative inspiration and you think, oh my goodness, this is going to be brilliant. This was not one of those times. It was like, oh my goodness, this is literally the worst idea any of us have ever had. Just give me more whiskey. And then we just totally fell in love with the gameplay dynamic. We're all really big geeks. Like, my day job, I run a literary nonprofit. So I live in Comic-Cons, I live in comics, like, I love all of that. And so when we decided we wanted to make a board game for like normal people that may or may not game, I had no idea how to do that. Like, I literally thought a game that was only 2 hours long was easy. I was like, well, it's not Battlestar Galactica. It can't be that hard. It's not true. Like, normal people think Yahtzee is confusing. So all around, like, almost every aspect of this game was a terrible idea. But the political climate was terrible. Like, in terms of the last year, Brexit has just kind of been a cluster. It's just been rubbish and kind of everyone is disenchanted on both sides. And we thought, oh, this is great. Like, we'll turn apathy into fun banter. But we literally released the Kickstarter the day before Theresa's May quote unquote deal came through. So even my friends that were kind of like calm about politics were just like suddenly like bone crushing, crying, blood angry. And I was like, oh, I could not have timed this worse. But welcome to politics.
They do say no, like there's no such thing as bad news. So
yeah, it's true.
But no, we were actually watching the gameplay video before we came on recording. I mean, were there any games that you drew inspiration on in terms of the mechanics of the game? You know, the sort of area control of the map and the dice rolling to get your headlines.
Honestly, I would love to say that we are really astute gamers and we thought to ourselves, like, what are the right dynamics to blend together? But we pretty much chose our game dynamics off of what could be the best jokes. So, for instance, there's a tile board. So there's 6 tiles that make up the map of the UK. And the reason we did that was solely because I wanted you to be able to win Brexit but lose Scotland. Like, that was so incredibly important to me. We wanted to try to take the really complicated arguments in the EU referendum and make them idiot-proof and iconic. So we ended up doing a dice rolling game, A, because we thought that people that don't game could probably learn how to roll dice, and B, I just wanted to draw like working class as a hammer because I thought that was somehow oppressive to the proletariat, and I wanted to represent all of the EU with a croissant, which I thought was extra offensive as well. So things like that just kind of brought it together, and I work a great deal in politics during my day job, so pretty much what no politician wants you to know, what they're talking about in Parliament at the bar, is just how to manipulate the media. So it was really important that the entire game be about spin, be about drawing headline cards into the news feed that were, you know, silly parodies of everything that's happening, or really offensive drawings of political pundits, and the entire goal would be just to spin them to your side or to knock them out of the headline. So that's kind of how that element came together. But honestly, guys, it's molded between all of the drafts. Like, the original game we had was really what I thought was easy, but I tried to teach it to a normal person and they literally started tearing up in the bar. So yeah, it just kind of became its own thing over what we thought would be amusing and what we thought we could teach normal human beings to play.
One of the mechanics that you included in the game was the you have facts which are more or less like wild cards to use in the arguments, but the fact cards, am I right in saying they contain actual facts about the debate that were not published? Yeah,
exactly. So we kind of dug into what were the strongest facts that could have been used. Everything from, you know, we have that terrible Brexit bus that's bringing this live 350,000, but we do actually spend 250,000 a week to the EU. So we put those kind of facts in there, A, so it would be a wee bit educational, but also so I could just make elaborate jokes about, here's all the facts that no one told you during the referendum. Use them now.
Yeah. Now that it is too late.
Which soul crushing in a way.
You laugh or you cry, basically.
That's pretty much our motto in making the game.
Yeah,
and it's pretty much the tone of Brexit, I feel.
Yeah,
in general.
So as we are recording this on the 1st of December, and of course the vote is going to be put to Parliament on the 11th of December. Dani, I do feel at this stage asking, like, what do you think will happen? We may as well just put a dartboard up somewhere and just with random outcomes and just blindfold someone.
Yeah.
But I mean, the chat is that the vote's not going to get passed. Do you think that's what's going to happen?
Honestly, it's really difficult to tell at this point. I always feel like I have a good grasp of what's happening in the political world. I sit down with all the political pundits I work with, and we will say one decisive thing. Like, the decisive thing was, like, May will not come out with this deal until halfway through January. So, of course, I built an entire marketing campaign around that, but no big deal. But, yeah, honestly, and I really enjoy looking at UK politics through the American lens because I spend half my year over in America. And it's just, well, Americans are constantly coming up to me especially in context of this game, and being like, I don't understand. Isn't Britain a part of Europe? Or my favorite, which is like, I don't understand why they just don't leave Britain like Scotland does. I'm like, you want Britain to leave Britain? They're like, oh yeah, Danny, there's different countries. And I was like, oh god, okay.
Ben's wincing because he's had this problem before.
I'm so sorry,
you've had the on online gaming, people say, oh, he's not British, he's Scottish.
Yeah. But to be fair, I think a lot of that is because, correct me if I'm wrong here, Danny, but in a lot of the US, the terms English and British are used interchangeably.
They are, yeah. I actually, embarrassingly, I went to uni in England, and as a doe-eyed 19-year-old, I didn't realize that there were separate countries in Britain. I didn't have any idea that Ireland was split. I didn't realize there was devolved parliaments. The idea of a devolved parliament was so foreign to me, I could not even grasp how Scotland is mostly apart. It has this much of their budget. Like, it was so incredibly confusing to me. But I was a teenager. Like, I still thought I was going to end up with Dawson from Dawson's Creek, because clearly we were meant to be together. So when I'm talking to 30 and 40-year-olds that are so confused about like the EU trade union as a concept, it's more troubling than that.
And it's one thing when it's Americans and it's a country, it's a part of the world that they're not directly involved in. But I feel most British people would struggle to explain the European Union and what its purpose was.
Well, that's abundantly clear from the result.
Well,
that's
most
people
true.
Don't understand what it does.
It's interesting to me. You guys have, and I especially saw this in the 2014 Scottish referendum, you have a youth culture that really cares about politics in a way that I've never seen in the States. I remember being there during the referendum and just being on a bus and hearing like 14-year-olds have in-depth conversations about currency. And that was mind-blowing to me. So to actually have that kind of young people knowing about their political system is so different and so refreshing. And in America, it's only become like relatively cool with the later millennial culture to care at all about the governing of our nation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you definitely have that ahead of us. Your understanding of American politics is horrifying, but not as bad as our understanding of your political system. So you guys still win.
Well, I mean, Trump just makes all the decisions, right? And this is how that works.
Yeah, no, it's mostly controlled through Twitter. That's what Trump would like you to think.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were talking about a board game.
At some point, we were talking about a board game. The other interesting thing is you've been on quite a few news outlets promoting
quite a few prolific ones as well, actually.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like I'm constantly talking with my team about the totally legit work we do for our day jobs, but how instead I made it a really offensive board game about Brexit, and suddenly all the news outlets are like, "Oh, Danny, do come on, we'll have fun banter about this." So, yeah, I think especially before the deal went through, there was a point where the news outlets were just thinking to themselves, oh God, another week is coming up. How the hell are we going to make Brexit sound even vaguely interesting? And then it was like, oh, well, that stupid American over there is doing something, and she's drawn Nigel Farage as a mini-face monster. Cool, let's have her on. That sounds like Vance. So, yeah, it was weird. It was weird to get that much attention, but lovely. Like, we got to have two political figures on STV actually play the game.
We watched
on
the
telly.
clip, yeah.
How silly was that?
One of them actually used to be my local MP, so we started watching the video and then I just shouted, "He's an arsehole!"
Guys, you're supposed to be impartial. Come on, man.
We firmly nailed our colours to the mast several episodes ago, I think.
And of course, you were interviewed by Alex Salmond as well. For his TV show.
Kremlin TV, right?
Russia Today.
Oh, sorry.
Russia Today.
Okay. What was really interesting about that, which I'm sure I'm not supposed to say, and Alex probably going to yell at me about this, Alex Salmond, among many things, is actually a really big board game geek. Like, he was so excited about the entire thing and was comparing it to, like, Civilization and various other things. We had an incredibly long talk about Battlestar Galactica. I remember looking at him over lunch and being like, How is this possible?
This is the biggest scoop this podcast has ever got.
So
Alex
cool.
Salmond is a board game nerd.
Yeah. That's so cool.
That's amazing.
Honestly, it was one of those hilarious moments where I had to remind myself to continue the hand gesture of putting my scone into my mouth, because otherwise I was just staring open mouth with half a pastry an inch from my cheek, just being like, yeah. So there, guys, there's your scoop.
Wow. Yeah.
Just Alex Salmond's just going like
He's
totally
gone up
in depth about Battlestar Galactica as well. Like,
I wonder if he has a 40k army.
what do you think he would play if he played 40k?
I don't know, man. I'm English. I can't answer this question without sound like there's going to be some sort of like negative connotation.
I think most people would just go straight for Imperium, but
well, no, that
he's kind of against that.
I was just going to say he's the last.
Do you think he'd be Tau?
No. If anything, right? Because if he rebels against the Imperium, then he's got to be Chaos, right? He's one of the. He's one of the.
He is Horus.
Yeah, he's. Danny, I'm really sorry.
I hope to God. I'm going to send this to Alec. He's going to be so horrified, and then he's probably going to stop inviting me on his show. So,
oh, wow.
We compared them to Horus as well.
On the plus side, Ben, we might get on to Russia today. Who knows?
Do you think we would each get a Quake, or was that just a special gift for you, Danny?
I don't know, but it is the best frickin' addition to my game nights ever. Like, A, I look incredibly cultured. Everyone's very impressed. And B, I get to say things like Quay and then put whiskey in the house. So, yeah, guys, let's get you one. I feel like you should do it on the podcast. Just pass it between you two and the cat.
Yeah.
The cat.
There we go.
We would pass it to the cat, and it would never come back.
Yeah, that's. Like, it's like I'm sure there was a lot more in this before we handed this to you, Sylvester.
Yeah.
And he's just sat there, just like, what of it?
Yeah. Not even trying to make excuses. Just
what are you gonna do about it?
Well, you two are subservient to me. So
listen, guys, I'll bring mine next time I'm in the UK. I'll just pop down to Glasgow, which I randomly presume is where you're located, and we'll just pass it around and see if it works.
You presume correct? Yes.
The Alex Salmond Quake.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent.
Bring it out in a pillow.
So, obviously, you've been exceptionally busy with the Brexit board game recently, but have you had much time to play any other games? What's been on the table for you lately?
Ooh, I mean, there's rarely a weekend that goes by where I don't think I should spend 7 solid hours learning a new game. I've recently just played Firefly Adventures. Have you guys played that?
No, I've played the Firefly. When you say Firefly Adventures, is this linked to the famous Joss Whedon TV show?
Of course.
Yeah, excellent. I have played the Firefly board game, but not Adventures.
It's a very elaborate setup where you have like railroad cars where you're like hiding in them, and it took me like 3 hours to try to figure out how to play the game because I'm stubbornly dedicated to a love of rule books, and I'm just so sure that I should stop watching gameplay videos and that if I'm smart enough I can just make the rule book work for me. But gentlemen, that was a terrible idea. So I definitely spent more time trying to figure out how to play that game than actually playing it, but I know that's such a cheap way to market a game, is just to pop someone's cult favorite on the top of it. But it feels a wee bit like being, 16 again and then falling in love with Joss Whedon and going through all the episodes. So that was terribly lovely. Though I played it with people who didn't know what it was, so I had to spend like hours explaining. I'm like, okay, they're cowboys in space. It's very complicated. There's a prostitute. Everything's fine. Similar explanation of politics.
Yeah, basically.
You know everything's going to be okay if there's a prostitute involved.
It's interesting actually that you mentioned that complaint about rule books, because this is a gripe that we have on the show really, like, way more often than we probably should. Just badly written rule books, and we could probably go on about like the worst offenders, but
the rule books tend to fall into two categories, and the sort of polar opposites of one another. I feel like they either over-explain everything, or like they don't give you basic things like a glossary and things like that, so you can refer to things. So they're either overcooked or underdone.
Never just right.
No.
Honestly, I feel like I spend more time like working on the rule books for Brexit than I spent on the gameplay. It's painful. So like one of the things I do for actual money is like we help novelists get their first books published, and it feels very similar to a query letter. It's like, okay, writing a book was incredibly hard, and that took 5 years of my life and a divorce and an alcohol problem. But now you need me to take 500 pages and put it concisely into 3 paragraphs that my entire career depends on. And it feels like rule books are the same, where I'm just like, okay, 2 years developing this, making sure it's evenly played, making sure I'm making fun of Remain and the Brexiteers at the same level, so I'm bipartisan. And just putting it in a 12-page rule book literally just had me banging my head against my computer, because I want to make sure people can actually know how to play the game without the internet. Like, what if the apocalypse happens and we really desperately need to play this board game? I worry about that.
It's an interesting notion, actually, that like comparing the rule book to the blurb on the book.
Yeah.
That it can live and die with that first encounter that the player or the reader has.
And quite rightly, we can't assume that everyone has access to I mean, everyone does have access to the internet nowadays, or almost everyone. But we can't assume that. We can't assume people just want to learn by watching a video of it either. So you're quite right to put as much effort and attention into the rule book as you have done, because...
So the way I think about it is, what if you've just picked the game up on your way up to Glen Cove for the weekend, and you have no access to the internet?
Yeah, you're in the vast wilderness of Scotland.
Yeah. No, like there's parts of Scotland like that where you just don't get reception, so you don't have the option of a watch it played or a rules explanation.
So no, you're quite. We agree. Basically, you're quite right to put as much effort into the rule book as possible.
Well, you guys saw our gameplay video, which is hilarious. I promise you, I put so much more thought into the rule book than I put into me and my adorable British friend making stripping jokes on that gameplay video.
Yep. We'll link the gameplay video and the other clips of you in various media outlets as well. Actually,
it's quite an experience.
But the line that made me laugh was about Theresa May's card. You think she'll help leave? You think she'll help remain? In the end, she's an empty chair and she's just taking up space. It's just.
I think when that particular line was delivered, you just went, "Oh, savage."
I didn't say false though. I didn't say false.
Because it's one of those that when you hear it explained like that, you're like, I don't think I could have said that better myself.
Yeah.
Sums up how everyone feels about her at the moment, I think.
Well, it was really fun to pair the jokes with the artwork. That was the really agonizing thing for me, because idiotically I did all the art for it as well. And I literally haven't drawn anything since high school, and I'm like old now. There's a 3 in front of my age. So it's been a while. But I was like, hell, we don't have a budget to get an artist in. Like, I'll just learn. But yeah, I mean, to have like Nicola Sturgeon is drawn as this impetuous child hoarding her EU dolls as a UK doll kind of stumbles towards her. We have, as we said, Farage is drawn as this mini-faced demon. I randomly have Boris Johnson obviously biking. There's no other way to draw Boris Johnson, but throwing dynamite into exploding the nation. David Cameron is this degenerate gambler, and he's pushing chips forward towards the camera that are the shape of Big Ben. So kind of that was really fun, but yeah, Theresa May was just one of those moments where we were just obviously drunk. This podcast makes me seem like I have a drinking problem. And just like, she should just be empty. And I drew the chair in like 20 minutes. That card came together just gorgeously. And yeah, it was, Sadiq Khan was easily the hardest person to make fun of. Like that bro just doesn't really do anything all that terribly wrong. And, yeah, it took us like 6 months.
He's been like a pillar of strength for London in all seriousness, because they've had their fair share of woes over the past couple of years. So like you say, it's kind of difficult to make fun of him when he's just
is
doing his job really well.
Just being competent.
Yeah.
It's unusual. That's the depressing thing. It's unusual.
Yeah.
We set up like kill files. That sounds terribly CIA-esque on each of the politicians, so I could kind of comb through and figure out how to make fun of them. And obviously, some were very easy. Like Haiti Hopkins is one of the players, and it was obvious we should draw her as a troll. But so they're all very thick. And then Sadiq, we were like, well, he hasn't really cut down knife crime as much as he's wanted to, but he has cut it down, and he's very good at regulating all of these traffic systems. And yeah, he's definitely changing all of these interesting racial stereotypes. I was like, okay, well, we're just going to have to make like a Trump joke and a bad pun because that's all we're going to get. So we have like a Sadiq can't stand various things like building a wall. So he's keeping London away from the rest of the world. But that was literally it. That was all we could make fun of that guy for.
Yes. You should write an angry letter to him. Mr. Khan, I am the creator of a satirical board game, and you, sir, are not incompetent enough to be made fun of.
I demand that you become more ridiculous.
Yes.
Effective immediately.
God, have an affair at least. Just like...
Well, we have a Donald Trump card in there because maybe an American will buy it. And also the fact that Donald Trump thought that he should have a say in Brexit before he was even president was hilarious to me. But that was also like one of those great moments of being like, we should bend on the grab him by the, I'm pretty sure I can't say that out loud on this podcast, insert
Cats.
word. Yes. So I have him grabbing this small cat and screaming at it, and I had such a fun time making his hands as small as possible and making the cat look as bemused, and we were trying to come up with good jokes for it. And we had just like 5 or 6 jokes that we absolutely loved for that card, and we had to choose one, and it was really terrible. There was a great Bengal tiger one that I was really amused by, but it's gone, boys. It's totally gone.
So the Kickstarter for Brexit, the board game of second chances, as of this going live, will have about a week left.
I think, that's how math works. Good job, guys.
Yep.
So, what are the plans after the Kickstarter?
Well, we've been contacted by some big distributors in the UK. Honestly, guys, this game makes no sense. Like, it's simultaneously everyone is really offended by it, doesn't want to talk about it, but definitely wants to talk about it all the time. I really can't keep track of my inbox. But yeah, so like I had a very random conversation with John Lewis where John Lewis is like, oh, we think this is really great, but could you make the cover less offensive? And for those of you who have seen the cover, it's a picture of the Brexit bus with wild tentacles coming out of it because it's a Brexiteer sort of pirate ship. And there's a We Remain bus that's having a tea party on the top and looking like it does not care. And I was just trying to think of how I would make that art less offensive for John Lewis. Like, just like a normal bus that just says lies on it.
I guess the Cards Against Humanity approach, or the Beatles approach of just a white box. Because I think I mean, if
you open it up and it's just an explosion of colour and offensive material.
I don't. Well, I mean, it's up to John Lewis to decide what they deem offensive or not within their shops, but it's political satire.
Maybe it's like they've zeroed in on the tentacle thing, and it's like the association.
No.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a Japanese porn thing. Thanks for pointing that out. I bet if I remove the tentacles, they're going to be like, actually, this is really family friendly.
Yeah, we could go. We could go with this. We could go with this.
Well, all I'm saying that is we live in a day and age where a game called Consenticle exists.
Yeah, and now I want to leave the planet.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, we will draw this episode.
We're leaving the planet now.
Bye, guys. Dani, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Just for our listeners again, where can they find out more about Brexit, the board game of second chances?
Yes, so you can go online to brexitgame.com where you can watch a slew of fun videos, and we'll also connect you to the Kickstarter. And for those of you who are interested in destroying any friendship or family gathering with loud political debate, I commend you. Good work, kids.
Rightio. Well, look, thanks very much for listening, guys. And until next time, take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. It's Charlotte from the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Now be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. All you need to do is search Unlucky Frog Gaming. You can also show your support for the Unlucky Frog through Patreon. To find out more information, check out our website, www.unluckyfrog.com. Thanks, bye!